All right, well, good morning, everyone. I see a couple new names that I don't recognize, so thank you guys for joining. This is the first of what I hope to be a really informative, also fun, and maybe not totally fun, but interactive webinar series that's really meant to engage the entire KdVS community and perhaps give you guys a little bit more information about where you guys can be involved as families and patients and caregivers, and the different opportunities to participate in all of the different exciting research projects that are going on right now. So let me take the proverbial 2 minutes to figure out how to share my slides. And okay, slideshow. Your screen sharing is paused. Ashley, can you tell me if you can see my slides okay? Or...
We cannot see them.
Okay, image. That's weird. Okay, hold on. That's really weird. Oh, wait. Let me try. Okay, and okay, can you guys see that? Did I finally do it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right, so since there are a couple of new names, I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Anna Falzer. I am the Chief Scientific Officer for the Koolen-de Syndrome Foundation. I have been lucky enough to be working with them for, I think, about a year now. And so the research that's going on right now has been expanding, and it's a really cool, exciting time to be involved in Koolen-de syndrome research. So I wanted to take probably the next 30-ish minutes just outlining the different research opportunities and really trying to convince you guys and show you the importance of community participation in developing effective treatments for Koolen-de syndrome patients. So I think we'll have plenty of time at the end of it for everyone who wants to ask questions, or I'll have my email address on a variety of different slides, so you can feel free to reach out and get a hold of me anytime. So I've structured it just to give you a brief overview of the drug development process and what that looks like in different areas for where community engagement is important / necessary. And then outline a couple basic research opportunities, clinical research opportunities, the various natural history platforms that the foundation and the community is involved in, the patient registry that the foundation has launched for a couple of years now, and then end with what I think would be really good future webinars, and then also open it up for suggestions for other topics that you guys or other members of the community think would be really interesting to hear about and educate the community on. Okay, so here is a very broad schematic of the overview of the drug development pipeline, and I hope you guys can see my pointer here. And it goes sort of from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. So the left-hand side of the screen, really it shows you right here, you have the gene that's identified to be the cause for the disorder. And once you identify that causal gene, usually one of the next steps is that you need to develop a variety of basic research models to sort of interrogate different pathways or figure out what it is about that gene and the variant and the mutation within that gene or chromosomal region, as the case is for Koolen-de syndrome, and how that causes the pathology and the symptoms that you see in the patient population. The most common of those basic research models really is a number and a variety of rodent models, as well as cell models, typically patient-derived cell lines. So up on the top here, the next part is really a critical component of the drug development process, which is establishing a natural history for the disorder. So natural history for Koolen-de syndrome. And what this is and what this means really is you want to get a really robust snapshot or idea of what the progression of the disorder looks like over time. And the importance of this is you get to see what symptoms emerge or disappear as individuals age. And this is really important for dictating or deciding which symptoms are included in clinical trials that are going to happen in the next handful of years to measure improvement or worsening in. And so a robust natural history study is one of those excellent opportunities for all of the community to get involved in. One of the, just for the sake of time, I won't go over every single piece of these, but another really important piece of this is this idea of a disease concept or disease burden study. And what this is a study that really captures the symptoms of greatest impact on the lives of KdVS families, caregivers, and patients. And this is a little similar to participating in a natural history study, but what a disease concept study does is it really captures the symptoms that are most impactful to the community / caregivers and patients. And the reason that's important is you want outcome measures for clinical trials for which improvements in those outcome measures are going to really have a significant impact on the quality of life for that participant or the families. Another really important part, and this is another part where patients can be engaged, is the identification of biomarkers. So biomarkers, as the name suggests, is really biological indicators of disease stage or disease progression. So whether a kid is getting worse or getting better with a particular treatment. And one good thing about biomarkers is they often tend to be more objective than some of the other online surveys or paper surveys that might be a little more subjective in terms of people's responses. And then, towards the right-hand side of this schematic here is really where the community starts interacting and interfacing with the FDA. We start having a first round of pilot clinical trials. And theoretically, we get to drugs that are approved specifically for Koolen-de syndrome, which have a really significant impact on quality of life and symptom improvement in patients with KdVS. Okay, so this slide is a little bit, it might be a little bit outdated now, but I wanted to show this because I think it is very impressive at the international team of clinical and basic research experts that are studying Koolen-de syndrome right now. And I just think it's incredible. We have teams of researchers in the Netherlands. We have researchers within the US, at St. Jude's, in Canada, at McGill, Italy, San Francisco and California, Stanford. We have researchers in Australia. I believe this is in Toronto or Ontario, Atlanta, Tel Aviv, France, Amsterdam, Wisconsin. So it's I mean, I think this is really something that's commendable for the Koolen-de syndrome research community, as well as the foundation and their ability to outreach and communicate their awareness about their disorder to an international community. So this is really cool for me to show you guys. So for the next 5 to 6 slides that I talk about specific research opportunities that everybody can be engaged in, here is really the take-home message. This is the cliff notes for the rest of the presentation, that if you were to remember anything, this would be it. The first thing is, you'll be asked to do lots of surveys. Do them all. The more information we have about what Koolen-de syndrome looks like from very different perspectives, whether that's looking at cognitive impairment, motor impairment, behavioral issues, sort of anatomical problems, congenital problems, any sort of survey that collects data in a systematic way that helps us inform what's the biggest picture of what's happening in Koolen-de syndrome. It's important. So do them as you are able. Several of the surveys will seem the same, if not be exactly the same. This will be frustrating and probably kind of annoying, but still do them. I can say from personal experience that we are working on ways to share data across all of the researchers that you saw on that screen beforehand. Not all of those kinks have been worked out yet. However, we're working on it. And so theoretically in the future, you won't have to fill out the same survey 2 to 3 times a year, because we know none of them are fun to do. However, my request is still do them. Participate whenever you can. A lot of these opportunities will be online surveys, so you can do them whenever you have the time. We know that everybody is busy, and online surveys are flexible, so you can take them many times, you can save them and come back later. And then one of the things that's probably nearest and dearest to my heart is the identification and collection of samples to use for biomarker identification. And so the last sort of take-home message would be, if you have any clinical procedure planned, contact the foundation. Either you can contact Ashley Point, I put her email address here. Whatever you are having, if you're willing to allow us to collect supplemental samples for research and to put into a biorepository, which we'll talk about, I think maybe on the next slide, contact the foundation, and we will work and coordinate with clinicians as we can and see if we can collect and store some of these samples. Okay, yeah, so I'm talking about basic research opportunities first. Okay, so as I mentioned on the slide previously, donating biosamples to the Koolen-de syndrome biorepository is one really critical piece that helps us answer a lot of questions, specifically about the biomarkers component in that drug development pipeline that I showed you towards the beginning. So what are biosamples? What are biomarkers? So biomarkers are sort of biological indicators of a kid or a patient's disease stage or progression or lack of progression in the case of clinical trials. What kinds of biosamples can help us identify biomarkers? So this list is certainly not exhaustive, but to give you kind of an idea and a taste of the types of things that we can and should collect as a community are blood and blood components. We can collect saliva, buccal swabs, so swabs using the inside of your cheek cells. We can collect urine samples. We can collect using considerably more invasive methods and piggybacking off of a clinical lumbar puncture, but we can collect supplemental cerebrospinal fluid. And we can also collect any sort of supplemental tissue that's left over from a clinical procedure like a surgery or something of that nature. And we can use some of these samples to generate cell lines, so cell models for researchers to study. And we can also measure differences in protein levels. So there's a robust robust use for these samples within the basic research and clinical research community. There's lots of ways in which you can donate any of these samples. So if you or your kid is having a clinical blood draw for any reason, if they have to go to the doctor's office to check, levels of something because a medication has changed, we can collect an extra vial of blood then. If you're having a clinical procedure, or like I said, if you're having a surgery of some sort, those are all really good chances for us to collect samples when something is already being collected. The foundation can also send a mobile phlebotomist to your home, and we collect a handful of these sample types in your home setting without having to go anywhere, since we know it's sometimes pretty difficult to travel. This year, the Koolen-de Syndrome Foundation had one of their biannual family conferences. So we collected samples there. So this is an opportunity in the next conference to keep this in mind. And then again, I feel like I've already said this 5 or 6 times, but if you're having an upcoming lab or a procedure, you can contact myself. My email address is here on the slide, as well as Ashley Point at the foundation. And we will work with you to see how we can collect some of these samples to be put in a biorepository for Koolen-de syndrome researchers. Okay, this was actually, I just put a picture of the the globe, the world here, just to give you an idea of where some of these samples that we have already collected from the community, where they have gone. So this is not showing you from where samples have come. We have collected samples through the foundation in the repository, and they have gone to researchers internationally already in less than a year of collecting this work. I think this is really fantastic, and really is part of the reason why interest in studying Koolen-de syndrome has really exploded in the last 1 to 2 years. Okay, so switching to opportunities for you and your child and your family to sign up and participate in natural history study. So these are online platforms. The 3 main ones that foundation has been engaged in and has developed a large cohort that we can direct you specifically to a place to sign up for right now would be these 3. The first one is Simon's Searchlight, which is a foundation that really focuses on disorders that are closely linked to autism. And participation in this is really a series of online assessments. Many of them are to be repeated annually, right? We want to know how symptoms change in frequency or prevalence or severity over time. How do they change with age? So many of these are asked for you to repeat some of these surveys once a year. You're also able to collect and donate biological samples through Simon's Searchlight as well. And so here is the link, if you're not already registered, to register for Simon's Searchlight. It's free as well. RareX is another online natural history platform. It is similar to Simon's Searchlight in that the main ask is completing a series of online assessments. Again, you're asked to complete some of these longitudinally, so at least once a year. Soon, they'll have an ability to incorporate electronic health records. And so in one place, you'll complete set assessments related to your child or your young adult's cognitive function, behavioral profile, motor assessments, lots of questions about organ systems and overall global developmental survey assessments. And the link to sign up for RareX is provided here as well. And then the last one is Citizen. Citizen is primarily a platform that pulls in your electronic health records. So you create an account through this link here, and it allows for this organization, Citizen, to go out and pull your child or young adult's electronic health records into this online database. And then you're able to share those health records to researchers or other clinicians as you see fit. Okay. The other two big things, and these are initiatives that were launched specifically by the foundation, is that there is a patient registry. Here's the link. This is the first link that you can see on this page. This registry is one of the best ways for you to hear about new research opportunities that's relevant to the Koolen-de syndrome community. And I can tell you that in the next couple of slides, there will be 3 or 4 new research opportunities for clinical research that we will need community engagement in and for people to sign up for these. So signing up for the registry is one of the easiest, best, relatively quick ways for you to be to stay informed about the research opportunities you and your family might be eligible for. And then we generated a patient priority survey. We actually designed this and developed this and was distributed first at the summit in Orlando a couple months ago. We've had a really great response. We've had about 80 to 90 participants complete this patient priority survey already. The main goal here is for us to get a general assessment of what are the symptoms that most heavily impact the KdVS community, caregivers specifically. And if you could pick a symptom or two that if you could improve, what would that be? And this is really to help us start honing in on what the outcome measures we should be focusing on and picking for the first round of clinical trials for kids with Koolen-de syndrome. So this is a REDCap link to complete this survey. If you haven't done it already, it takes somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes, and it would really help. Okay, so now I am switching a little bit and giving you some very specific, tangible research opportunities for some of the researchers that were on one of the beginning slides, but ongoing research that you could participate in. So this first one is through Dr. Ken Myers. He is located at McGill University in Canada. He's really one of the leading researchers in looking at EEG patterns in Koolen-de syndrome. And he's also really interested in reports of dysautonomia in kids with Koolen-de. Now, I thought it would be worthwhile just to briefly explain and give some examples so that you guys could think about whether this is appropriate for you or your kid. So this is certainly not exhaustive, but the autonomic system, if you can think about it, manages, among other things, primarily blood pressure, body temperature, breathing, digestion, heart rate, sweating or lack of sweating, etc. So this is not exhaustive, but what this might look like in your kid is, they might have issues with regulating their body temperature, low body temperature. They might have a lack or an excess of sweating or tear production or saliva production, excessive drooling, fainting, dizzy spells or dizziness, especially when they switch from sitting to standing, standing to sitting. And then they also might have insensitivity to pain. So when they stick their hand on the stove or they get hurt otherwise, they're less sensitive to that. If you think that your kid might have any of these symptoms or might possibly be eligible for the study, I think we've decided that the best way to participate in this would be to contact Dr. Myers directly. So we've put his email address here at the bottom here. Okay, so this Dr. Koolen, of course, requires no introduction. He and his team are at Radboud, and he has an immunopathology survey. This is another online assessment. It's fairly short. It requires about 10 to 15 minutes to complete. And really, I think that he designed this in response to reports on patients from caregivers talking about having a high susceptibility to infections or other immune or autoimmune problems in patients. And what this can look like, again, this is just a couple examples and is certainly not exhaustive, but does your child or your young adult have potentially frequent respiratory infections? And do they have delayed healing when they get a scratch or a cut or some sort of open wound? Does it take a really long time for it to heal? Under or overgrowth problems? Do they have asthma? Are they often told that they're anemic or have low iron levels? Do they have low platelet counts? Those are some couple examples of whether your kid may have some sort of immune impairment or abnormality. The process for completing this online survey is first is to email this email address right here that Dr. Koolen provided us with. They'll have you complete a very short consent form, and then they'll send you a link to the digital online survey. So if you haven't completed this yet, we would love to increase participation in this important study with Dr. Koolen. Okay, I know there's a bunch of questions in the chat. Okay. Not questions. Thanks, Ashley. Okay. The next, let's see, I think I skipped one or two by clicking on. I did. Okay. So the next study I wanted to talk about and make sure you guys were aware of is, it's certainly not a new study. Dr. Morgan at Murdoch Research Institute has been studying speech and language development in kids with Koolen-de syndrome for quite a while now. And she's published several papers on identifying really unique speech as well as language development patterns in kids who have Koolen-de syndrome. And so she has a series of research opportunities that are different types of speech assessments, and including, I actually won't go into specifics right here, but so here is the email address if you or your child might be possibly interested in participating in this study. I'm not sure, this might be too gray or hard to see, but there are a couple of eligibility criteria, but you can see they're very broad and must have a genetic test that confirms the diagnosis of Koolen-de syndrome. They have to be at least 6 months of age, but then any age up until adulthood is eligible. They can be verbal or nonverbal, and then there are a variety of languages that you can speak as well. So please reach out to Dr. Morgan or her research team if you guys are interested in this. Okay, so this is more of a coming soon page, but I just really wanted you guys to get an idea of how the interest in Koolen-de syndrome has been massively expanding recently, and that we are soon going to be able to give you more specifics on how to participate in a variety of studies through UCLA, Purdue University, as well as Stanford University. These will be primarily online surveys, again, to look at really different types of assessments for characteristics of autism, and really focusing on autism characteristics in kids who have rare neurodevelopmental disorders. We will send out links to those very soon. Again, this is another reason for people to make sure that they're registered through the patient registry so that we can give you this information soon as it's available to us. Dr. Helen Wilsey at the University of California, San Francisco, she is really a translational neuroscientist. She is really has launched several projects, both basic research projects as well as clinical research projects, looking at the role of cilia and Koolen-de syndrome. So she's using both cell models. So cilia is very, in generalities, is just an important part in neuronal signaling, as well as part of the cytoskeletal structure of neurons. And you can study it in basic research models, so in cell models, but you can also, there's also apparently testing that you can look at cilia, which requires just a non-invasive sort of nasal testing assessment. It's brief, less than 5 to 10 minutes. Currently, it requires patients to be in the San Francisco area, so to be able to physically go to her lab. I think we're hoping to see if this could potentially be expanded to other places, but for right now, if you're one of those people that might be in the San Francisco area and you wouldn't mind participating in this really cool research opportunity, please let me know, and we will get you set up with Dr. Wilsey. Okay. Another really cool research opportunity, this one has just started, and so we're actively looking for families to participate in this. This is a disease concept study. So that was one of the things, that was one of the steps in the drug development pipeline that we discussed at the very beginning. And again, what this is it is a study that requires somewhere between 10 and 20 families to participate. And it is a semi-qualitative interview. So you just discuss with an interviewer what your daily life is like with living with a kid, a child, or young adult, or an adult with Koolen-de syndrome. And this is very important for designing clinical trials because it really outlines the symptoms of greatest importance for families and patients. And these symptoms are the priority ones that are used to select the outcome measures in clinical trials for Koolen-de syndrome. The commitment is typically anywhere between 60 to 75 minutes of your time. This particular study will be run through the genetic counselor program at the Medical College of Wisconsin. We expect it to start enrolling very soon. So if you or your family think that you would potentially have the time to participate in this new research opportunity, you are also welcome to email me as well. I should say, I should have mentioned at the very beginning, but for all of the studies where it requires just online assessments, and even this disease concept study here, which would be sort of a virtual interview, it's international. It's open to the international community. So you don't have to be located within the United States to participate in the vast majority of these research opportunities. Okay, so I think this is my last slide. Yeah, okay. So as I said at the beginning, my goal is for this to be a monthly webinar series. We've set it up to have the last Thursday of every month, 10 a.m. Eastern time. And I want this to be a time and a space for people to be reminded and or told about new research opportunities for their kids and the Koolen-de syndrome community. The next one I hope we will have is November 30th, if I checked my calendar right. And there we will have a presentation from a resource that I think is very valuable for the community. And that is from the University of Maryland Brain and Tissue Bank from Dr. Tom Blanchard and Grace Flannery. And they're talking about the importance of tissue donation. The next one should be December 21st or 28th, and that is a time where I want to introduce some of the new research opportunities that I couldn't give you direct links or direct contact information to right now. And then for the next several ones, those are sort of open to suggestion, what you guys really want to hear about, or more details about for particular researchers or clinical researchers. Yeah, so we ended about 20 minutes early, I think. So here, you guys have seen these email addresses probably 5 or 6 times already, but if you have any questions about this that you're not asking them right now, please feel free to reach out to either Ashley or myself or anybody else from the foundation if you have questions about any of these research projects that we just went through. Okay. I am going to stop sharing my screen, but I can pull it back up. Okay. Hold on. Are there any questions right now? Oh, Ashley, you're just putting links. Okay.
And I just want to say thank you for doing this for us. I think this is great research opportunities for everyone to understand and know what we have available. And we just appreciate your time on this. And thank you for all your work to advance the research for the foundation. It's exciting times for us for sure.
Yeah, of course. So if there's not any questions, let's see, wait, there is one. Okay, Patty. Okay, is there any research or doctors centered on the mental health aspects of Koolen-de syndrome? Oh, that is so great. Okay, so Patty just asked if there's any research or doctors whose research is really focusing on the mental health aspects of Koolen-de syndrome. So that I know of, no one is studying specifically sort of like anxiety or really their assessments are really geared towards behavioral challenges in kids with Koolen-de syndrome. Probably I'm of course going to remember exactly, like there's someone doing this later. But there are a series of behavioral surveys that are part of those natural history platforms that we talked about, which is like Simon's Searchlight has a survey that talks about, some of these psychiatric issues that you're talking about in their online assessments. RareX has a couple questions about that too. But that I know of, no one is specifically focusing on a research project that looks at those particular symptoms. We do have a couple sort of social communication, social interaction studies. Those are the ones that are through UCLA and Purdue and Stanford that might focus in on some of those symptoms a little more than sort of the natural history platforms. But yeah, that's a great question. I think those are the closest ones that are going to start looking at those symptoms. Any other questions? That was a good one. Okay. Well, thank you guys for showing up. If you have any questions or if you're watching this from a recording, please feel free to reach out. We'd love for you to get involved.